What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. And right now we've got Numbers chapter 15 lined up. Previous chapters, we looked through preparing to leave Mount Sinai, and then they finally did. They got to the edge of the Promised Land. Moses sent some scouts in to check it out. Most of them brought about an unfavorable report because they were afraid of the people living there, basically. And God didn't like that. So God said, all right, well, you don't trust me enough to get you into the land that I've promised to you just because there are some, big, strong people there. Now you're going to wander the wilderness until all of you die. Well, most. It was specifically stated that Caleb and Joshua would still make it to the Promised Land. But they've just begun wandering the wilderness for what's going to be a total of 40 years. And, yeah, I would imagine there's a fair bit that could happen during that time. So let's get to it. Here we go. Numbers chapter 15. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you finally settle in the land I am giving you, you will offer special gifts as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. These gifts may take the form of a burnt offering, a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, a voluntary offering, or an offering at any of your annual festivals, and they may be taken from your herds of cattle or your flocks of sheep and goats. When you present these offerings, you must also give the Lord a grain offering of 2 quarts of choice flour mixed with 1 quart of olive oil. For each lamb offered as a burnt offering or a special sacrifice, you must also present 1 quart of wine as a liquid offering." But it doesn't mention liquid offerings needing to be given for cattle. Interesting. Maybe, I guess, because the cattle were larger and or more valuable. Also, footnotes here, probably just giving the Hebrew measurements of 1/10 of an ephah, where it says 2 quarts, and 1/4 of a hin, where it says 1 quart. I guess because flour is a dry measure, it uses ephah, and olive oil being liquid, it uses part of a hin instead. So we've gone over, some previous laws regarding offerings and whatnot. This seems to be focusing maybe a bit more on just offerings in general and not so much specific categories. Although maybe it'll get into that a bit later. But also I'm finding it interesting that God specifically wants to tell the people, when you finally settle in the land I'm giving you. He just got done telling the people, most of y'all are going to die before you go to the Promised Land. So, I guess though, this is something that was meant to be passed on to future generations, because future generations would in fact go to the Promised Land. So, might as well prepare them as best you can. So maybe they won't make the same mistake of doubting God. At least not in the same way. Anywho, then we get to verse 6. "If the sacrifice is a ram, give a grain offering of 4 quarts of choice flour mixed with 1/3 of a gallon of olive oil, and give 1/3 of a gallon of wine as a liquid offering. This will be a pleasing aroma to the Lord. When you present a young bull as a burnt offering, or as a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a peace offering to the Lord, you must also give a grain offering of 6 quarts of choice flour mixed with 2 quarts of olive oil, and give 2 quarts of wine as a liquid offering. This will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord." Okay, so right now the focus actually seems to be more so on, okay, how much both dry and liquid measurements are supposed to be used in each of these, along with each of these animals used in these offerings. So, for, I guess specifically for lambs, or maybe just sheep, it was 2 quarts of flour, 1 quart of olive oil, and 1 quart of wine. For a ram, let's see here, 2 quarts of choice flour, so double that. 1/3 of a gallon of olive oil. That says 1/3 of a hin. You know, that was, so not quite double the olive oil, but 1/3 of a gallon of wine. So the wine offering is basically equal to the olive oil. Hey, what's up, StarFox22? How's it going? Let's see here. Also, young bull as an offering. It mentions 6 quarts of flour mixed with 2 quarts of olive oil. So the liquid offering is doubled, but the flour is triple the one for the lamb. I guess up next is verse 11. Each sacrifice of a bull, ram, lamb, or young goat should be prepared in this way. Follow these instructions with each offering you present. All of you native-born Israelites must follow these instructions when you offer a special gift as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. And if any foreigners visit you or live among you and want to present a special gift as a pleasing aroma to the Lord, they must follow these same procedures. Native-born Israelites and foreigners are equal before the Lord and are subject to the same decrees. This is a permanent law for you, to be observed from generation to generation. The same instructions and regulations will apply both to you and to the foreigners living among you. So, this kind of almost gives, I don't know, it reminds me in a sense of, I forget where the passage is, but somewhere in the New Testament where it's talking about there being, neither Jew nor Greek, slave or free, like there's no difference between those various types of people in God's eyes. I mean, this is more so like the foreigners don't seem to be obligated so much to present all these offerings. But if they're going to present an offering or, celebrate the festivals or whatnot, they need to follow the same procedures. So in that way here, more specifically, it's talking about, it's saying that they're all even. Basically, anybody, whether born into it or voluntarily entering into, God's covenant or anything thereof, wanting to be part of his people, they all follow the same regulations. There's no difference there, because God's people are God's people, no matter how they started off, so to speak. Verse 17. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you arrive in the land where I am taking you, and you eat the crops that grow there, you must set some aside as a sacred offering to the Lord. Present a cake from the first of the flour you grind, and set it aside as a sacred offering, as you do with the first grain from the threshing floor. Throughout the generations to come, you are to present a sacred offering to the Lord each year from the first of your ground flour. But suppose you unintentionally fail to carry out all these commands that the Lord has given you through Moses. And suppose your descendants in the future fail to do everything the Lord has commanded through Moses. If the mistake was made unintentionally, and the community was unaware of it, the whole community must present a young bull for a burnt offering as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. It must be offered along with its prescribed grain offering and liquid offering, and with one male goat for a sin offering. With it the priest will purify the whole community of Israel, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. For it was an unintentional sin, and they have corrected it with their offerings to the Lord, the special gift and the sin offering. The whole community of Israel will be forgiven, including the foreigners living among you, for all the people who were involved in the sin. Okay, so gotta present a cake from the first flour you grind. I mean, that sounds very much related to like the tithing idea, or like kind of the first harvest offering that they were supposed to give. Because, each year they were supposed to give, the first of their crops to God. There was like a special ceremony event thing for that. Now, I'm not sure if this is saying that, like, this is the same thing and this is just the way that God wants it offered, or if this is sort of in addition to that, because I guess, they might not necessarily grind all of the first bit of flour that they get. Maybe I'm thinking too much on that. Anyway. Suppose you unintentionally fail to carry it. You see, this is one of those things where it's like, if it's unintentional, and the community was unaware, like, how does anyone... Is that just kind of saying, like, okay, if you got busy and forgot about it, and nobody really tried to remind you, or, anything like that, when it was supposed to be done, maybe that's what it's talking about here, saying the community was unaware. Because otherwise then it's like, okay, how would anybody find out? I mean, I guess if the person who was guilty of it then came to that conclusion themselves that they forgot it, okay. But otherwise, I wonder if it might have been something where, like, okay, well, if they fail to carry it out, then, there might be some consequences from God that would then kind of make it obvious that, oh, I forgot to do this thing. Or at least somebody forgot to do this thing. And then that could maybe also explain the other bits of this offering to sort of make up for it. And the way it reads, you almost get the impression that, like, there only needs to be one young bull offered, along with the male goat and the liquid offering and grain offering and that kind of stuff. But it reads as if, there only needs to be one set of offerings given to make up for the whole community. If they're not really sure who did it, so to speak. Again, don't necessarily take that as fact. That's just maybe what I'm reading into it because of the way that it's worded. Also, I thought I saw a footnote somewhere in here. There we go. Make atonement instead of making them right with the Lord. Or I guess maybe instead of saying it will purify the whole community, making them right with the Lord. The original Hebrew might also be translated, that the offering will make atonement for the whole community of Israel. Similar idea. That's kind of what atonement means. Okay. Then I guess I will get to verse 27. If one individual commits an unintentional sin, the guilty person must bring a 1-year-old female goat for a sin offering. The priest will sacrifice it to purify the guilty person before the Lord, and that person will be forgiven. These same instructions apply both to native-born Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. But those who brazenly violate the Lord's will, whether native-born Israelites or foreigners, have blasphemed the Lord, and they must be cut off from the community. Since they have treated the Lord's word with contempt and deliberately disobeyed his command, they must be completely cut off and suffer the punishment for their guilt. Okay, so same for native-born and foreigner. We've covered that already. This just says if one commits an unintentional sin, not saying specifically about, leaving out a particular offering, like it was implied that this section was talking about, but just in general, unintentional sin. It says you have to bring a female goat for a sin offering. Purify there probably just says make atonement for. But again, even the foreigners who are choosing to live among the community of God's people, they're not exempt from the punishment for disobeying God's commands. Just because they're not, born into that people group. You're willingly living as part of that community. So you still have the same rules to follow. So in either case, like if they know better but just kind of say, whatever, I'm going to do this thing that goes against God's commands anyway, then they have to be cut off from the community. Because, like, how is it going to be considered a community of God's people who are worshiping God and following his commands and separating themselves that way if the people can just willfully be like, whatever, and, just get away with it and have no consequences? You can't rightfully claim that you're part of God's people if you're not trying to follow God's commands. Like, especially if you're willingly defying them. But anyway. Alright, then we get to verse 32, which apparently is going to cover breaking the Sabbath. One day, while the people of Israel were in the wilderness, they discovered a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. The people who found him doing this took him before Moses, Aaron, and the rest of the community. They held him in custody because they did not know what to do with him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "The man must be put to death. The whole community must stone him outside the camp." So the whole community took the man outside the camp and stoned him to death, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. That actually sounds vaguely familiar from one of the previous books, either end of Exodus or somewhere in Leviticus. But yeah, Sabbath day was an important thing. So once again, you can't just ignore God's commands if you're going to be part of his community. And, the Sabbath day was supposed to be a day of rest, not going out and doing work because it's, convenient and or because nobody else is working, therefore nobody's there to get in your way, so to speak. Anyway, again, that topic has kind of been covered before, so I don't feel like saying too much more on that here. So then we get to verse 37 in the last little paragraph of the chapter here. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Throughout the generations to come, you must make tassels for the hems of your clothing and attach them with a blue cord. When you see the tassels, you will remember and obey all the commands of the Lord, instead of following your own desires and defiling yourselves as you are prone to do. The tassels will help you remember that you must obey all my commands and be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. I am the Lord your God." So the tassels were just supposed to be kind of a reminder of, God's commands, or at least the desire to obey those commands. I've seen similar things, in modern times where you might go to a certain event and then get, just something as a reminder, where the idea will be to kind of carry it on you, so you'll constantly be reminded of either something specific from the event or just general, desire to seek after God. I also just briefly had a thought about God's repeating of the whole "I am the Lord your God." That appears after quite a number of different commands in the Bible, actually. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with, God saying to Moses, and even then maybe to the people, generally speaking, that his name basically was "I am." When Moses asked God, who to tell the people was sending him to rescue them from Egypt, God told Moses, "Tell them I am sent you." So I kind of wonder if that's playing it all into the repetition of saying "I am the Lord your God." Kind of a reminder of, not only what God's telling them, but of who God is. So anyway, I think that about wraps it up for Leviticus chapter 15. Okay, so, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments below there with any thoughts you have. Also, make sure you give a look to these videos that are going to be down here in the corners of the screen. One's a video, just something else from my channel that you might want to watch. The other's the playlist of, all the other Bible study stuff in case you missed anything. But anyway, that's all I've got for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.